I was really beginning to create the life that I wanted and started checking in with myself on a very deep level on who I was and who I wanted to be.
Welcome to your Journey to Joy podcast. I'm your host, Moyra Gorski, and I'm on a mission to help you find joy in the chaos of life. As a retired nurse, multi-passionate entrepreneur, and mom of 4 adult children, I know what it's like to feel the overwhelm of it all and wonder if and when the joy will show up again. And I've learned it's up to us to go find that joy. On this show, you will hear inspiring stories from those who have overcome all kinds of life challenges, tips on how to stay healthy and vibrant during the ups and downs of life, and simple ways on finding joy in your own life. Let's face it, life is messy, yet when we travel together on this journey, support and encourage each other along the way, that joy starts to show up again. I'm so excited to lead you on this journey of you to find the joyful life that you deserve. Well, welcome to another episode of the podcast. I'm your host, Moyra Gorski, and so thrilled that you are back here today listening and you continue to share this podcast as I continue to be on this mission of just helping people find joy in their life. We know that there's going to be chaos. We know there's going to be challenges and that require a lot of juggling. But if we intentionally focus on finding the things that bring us joy, using the tools that we learn about, we can, again, live more joyful lives. And my guest today is Lynee Lopez, that she's coming to speak with us and have a conversation with me. I met Lynee through a networking group that I'm a part of. And I love what she does. I love what she has to say. She's a podcast host, but really works with children and with education and with schools, and really on a mission to help us raise healthy children, resilient children, or raise them or teach them, educate them, and things like that. So we're going to talk about that a bit, but we're also going to talk about Lynee's journey through her own wellness journey and finding herself where she is today and passionate about what she does. So thank you, Lynee, for joining me. I'm so glad that you are here.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here and be in conversation and community with you. So thank you for having me.
You are very welcome. As I say with most of my guests, let's start at the beginning or start with your story. I know that you do have a story of your wellness journey and finding yourself to coming to where you're at today or becoming passionate about what you are doing with your business. So, and you talked about, again, your children being your motivation. So I'd love for you to share with the guests just, again, kind of how you got to where you're at today, or kind of that backstory, if you will, of your journey through life.
Sure. I'd love to share that. So I'll take you back actually to when I was 5. And when I was 5 years old, my grandmother enrolled me in figure skating classes. And I didn't do it before. My ankles were buckling. I really didn't love it at first. But she showed up every week to take me there, and I got better and better. And what happened there is I created a love for the ice and for figure skating. And it became a place for me, particularly in my teen years, where I felt empowered, where I could be in flow and be creative, and where I could trust my body. Because at that point in my figure skating career, I was in a decision if I was going to actually pursue trying to go to the Olympics. So I was doing jumps and spins and all the good things. And really, you have to have a lot of trust in your body and in your training to do that. So that was a really big starting point for me into understanding that I had the power to get involved in things that really felt good in my body and really helped me move through some difficult times in my life. So, teenage years are never easy, right? Mm-hmm. For anybody. So when I was in them, no different, right? I struggled with friendships and let down and all those things. But the returning to that sport for me was always a centering. And as I moved in and I went into college, I was an athlete. I did a lot of other sports through my early years and my teen years. But by the time I got to college, I was kind of burned out from it. I'd been doing a lot, and I really was ready to shift into being somebody different, right? Having a new creation of who I was. And I was very interested in oceanography. I was a bit of a science nerd in high school, and I decided I wanted to be an oceanographer. We lived very close to the beach. I love the beach. I had a real passion for keeping our beaches clean and environmental protection laws and things like that. So I entered my first year of college and my first semester, and I failed out. And that was, I'd never really failed at that level at anything. So it was a little bit of a shake, a little bit of a crack in the matrix, shall we say, right? Like, okay, what's going on here? Mm-hmm. And, trigonometry was a little bit involved there. We had some high level things that I just was like, oh, do I really want to do this at this level? And the universe was kind of pulling me away from it. So I had a little bit of downtime. I didn't go back to school the next semester. And then actually around May, around this time of year, my mom had said to me, hey, listen, I really want you to go back to school. I know that you're not sure what your major is going to be, but I want you to keep moving forward. Just take anything. Just take anything, right? So I took a summer class. I took an art history class, actually, and thinking it was going to be an easy A, and it was not. It was a very difficult class, but I sort of had this new love. I found a new love. I really enjoyed learning about artists. I enjoyed learning about their creativity and what fueled them, what their lives looked like, right? What their stories were. It was just so intriguing to me. So that actually set me up to finish college. I switched majors and became an art history major. And that got me my bachelor's degree. And then I went out into the world and couldn't find a job in that. So here I am again, recreating myself and trying to find what works for me. And I took a moment and just tried to figure out, like, what's going to bring me some joy. Like I had understood that I'd understood being on the ice brought me joy, right? I understood that pursuing art history brought me joy. So I started to fall back on these reflections of, like, when I had these moments, like, okay, what feels like I'm going to have some joy and happiness? Like, what's going to make me feel good? So I ended up mentoring 2 young girls through the Mental Health Association in Broward County. I was in Florida at the time. And I was with these girls for a year, and it was very life-changing for me. And that started a new passion in me for education, which put me on my career path, right? I ended up going back to school. I got my teaching certification. I started off in just a regular, private childcare center, and built my practice from there. But what I will say about that is I realized that I also had a joy for children, like watching them grow, supporting them and learning new skills, working with parents, finding resources. So all of that was very much in alignment with, like, what filled me up. And then I became a parent myself. Right. So I have 3 lovely children who are older now. They're 23, 20, and 16. But I was very much in it when they were little. I was teaching, they were coming to school with me. I was really, really in it. And I sort of grew up as a parent as they were growing up. So I was growing with them. And, sometimes I was great at it, and sometimes I needed help. So what I quickly learned was that I needed my family. At the time, as I mentioned, I was living in Florida, and my parents were in New Jersey. So after I had my first in Florida and my son came, my second child, I'm divorced now, but at the time I said to my husband, I said, we're going to have to go back because I'm realizing that I need help. This is a lot to juggle and handle, and we don't really have a support system here. So that's what we did. We transferred ourselves back to New Jersey and, started a life here, and we were around family. His mother was here as well. So that really put me in a place where I could ask for help. I could have rest when I needed it. I could actually go out with friends, right, and not feel guilty about it, right? So it was great in that sense. And then, fast forward a little bit through my career, I ended up teaching for a while. I went into administration and became a director of early childhood. And then eventually in 2013, I had this crazy year when many of the things in my life fell apart. Lost my job. My mother was losing her battle with throat cancer, and I did lose her that year in May of that year. And my marriage was dissolving. So I really, again, found myself at this spot where I needed to check in and decide what did I need to do to move forward? What tools did I need? What resources did I need? Who did I want to be? Because at that time I was losing parts of my identity. Like, who am I if I'm not a wife? Mm-hmm. Who am I if I'm not a daughter? Who am I if I'm not the leader of this program? So I really had to sort of sit with that in that discomfort and really start reevaluating things. And the very first thing that came to me when all of this started, I mean, I think I was going through it in stages, like January, it was like a build. And then finally in October, it was like the tipping point. And I was like, okay, I'm going to therapy. Like I cannot handle anything else on this plate. So that is what I did. I ended up finding an amazing therapist who I saw religiously every week for a full year. And then beyond that, I was with her as well, just not weekly. And she really helped me. She really helped me to understand and validate what I was feeling. She helped me release, because at that time I was in my mind, I'm not saying this was the right decision, but in my mind, I was holding things together for my kids and not allowing my emotions. There was no place for them to go. So, that therapy office was the place at least once a week. I knew it was safe to let go, to release, to cry, to rage, whatever that needed to happen. It was a place that I could release that. So that was definitely a really amazing tool for me. I did start my business that year. So I started therapy in October. I opened my current business the following month. And that's how I sort of, my career path took off in a different way as an entrepreneur. But alongside that, this reevaluation that was happening was, I want to be there for my kids, right? The current life that I was living was, I was commuting over an hour. I was working a full day. I was commuting home the hour. So energy-wise, I was pretty spent. My children, since they were young, still, as I mentioned, they were going to aftercare. So they were getting picked up late. And then you come home, and then what does that all look like? It's like, what are we having for dinner? And, sometimes those weren't healthy choices. They might have been a McDonald's run, right? Homework, just they were also in sports. So we might have sports games. I remember this one season, I decided I was going to be really, really smart. And I decided to put hot dogs in a thermos with hot water and brought them to the field with the buns and all of the accompaniments. So in between games, we could have dinner out of the trunk of my Ford Escape. Right? Getting resourceful. But so alongside this new business that I was creating, I, for the first time, was able to control my schedule in a way that I was always pushing up against what will be best for my family and my children. So I wanted to be home I wanted to be home before they got out of school. I wanted to be sure I could go to all of their sports games. I wanted to be sure that if they had a special event or a chorus that they were doing, or they were in a play, that I could block the day so that I could go. Because before that, I couldn't. I missed so many things. I missed so many special events. I cannot tell you how many first days of school I missed all those years, because I was in education. And when you're in education, where do you have to be? Right? You have to be in the school building with all those little people and those parents that are entering. So for so many years, I missed those first day of school memories. So that was really sort of in 2013, there was a big shift in my life where I was really beginning to create the life that I wanted and started checking in with myself on a very deep level on who I was and who I wanted to be.
Yeah. A few things that I wanted to highlight in what you said, which is again, it's a great story. It's a journey. I think there are many that are listening to this podcast and perhaps those that don't, but that I hear from. And it's many times those young adults that they're saying, I don't know what I want to do, or I don't know if I want to do this forever. And so then they get stuck. And I interviewed a gal recently who's really a coach for those young adults and teens and really helping them get unstuck. And she's finding that they get stuck many times because, well, for various reasons. And you can listen to the podcast and I'll link it in the show notes. But I've heard it from my own children and some other children is that, well, I don't know if I'm going to do this forever. And is this the right choice? So I'm not going to do anything at all. But what your journey was, you continued to find a new identity or reinvent yourself or be willing to be flexible to change. Like maybe this isn't going to work, or you were forced out of school, but then you decided a different path and that felt good. And so you went on and you just morphed and changed and things like that. And that was good.
Yeah.
Again, so many children these days and even, people, and moms with those kids, they're, like you said, who am I if I'm not a mom? And not necessarily that or a wife, you don't have to get divorced, but when your kids walk out of the house and they go to college, like, who am I if they don't need me?
Yeah.
And then they're stuck, like, I don't know what to do and I'm depressed or things like that. Well, I want to highlight that in showing, and I talk to women about that often, is that you can find things, even though things change and the kids leave or you get divorced or you move states or you break your leg and you can't figure skate anymore, those kind of things, you can reinvent yourself or find something different that gives you that identity and purpose. And then the second thing along that is that it's okay to ask for support. It's okay to ask for help. And you said you found a therapist and you talked to people, but then you were also like, I think you said, but sometimes, because I look at support, that was a big thing for me, is that I never really asked for help because I looked at help as this, I'm this weak person and I'm not capable, but it's really not that at all. Sometimes you're under so much stress that you aren't capable of doing certain things, but there are times that you just need some support. And it could be, let's go for a walk. I need to talk it out or just get out in nature. Would you like to go for a walk with me? That can be the support that you need that day. And it can also be finding a therapist and sitting in their place where they provide this safe space for you to speak, to vent, to cry, to find some solutions to what you're going through. And again, many people don't feel comfortable asking for support, but I want that to be brought up again to say it's okay to ask for support. I talk about that all of the time on this podcast because again, I found that myself that I was able to ask for help, but I wasn't doing it because I just felt like I wasn't adequate and I wasn't, there's something wrong with me if I couldn't handle the situation. And really, when we can learn how to ask for support, set those boundaries, then we're helping ourselves.
Yeah.
And thus, then we can better serve those around us, be it our children, our businesses, our families, our life, whatever the case is. And I love that. I love even when you first started talking about ice skating and you're trusting your body and you found things to flow. And I'm just going to say this, that I started ballroom dance lessons a couple of years ago. And I was just speaking with a girlfriend about it this morning. I mean, that's part of the reason why I go is to try to relax, de-stress, like let go and flow. Yes, I do competitions and I want to do well, but really it's to try to show up there and continue to trust me because I didn't realize that the dancing would help me with things in life.
Yeah.
And that, I'm this leader and I'm a businesswoman, an entrepreneur and a mom of 4 kids and I get it all done. And then I step into a dance studio where I have to not only trust myself and like being okay with what I see in the mirror, but I have to trust the person that is leading me. I have to stop leading and I need to follow. And so it's that there's a big trust in there that it came up to me when you were talking about getting on the ice and trusting your own body. That's a singular type of sport, unless you're, of course, in pairs. But I'm finding that a lot. It keeps coming up, is that trust piece. Again, trusting myself, because I'm this perfectionist, and I just came from a Zumba class, and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing here. And I was like, okay, it's just Zumba. It doesn't matter, you know?
Yeah, Zumba gets me all the time, so I'm with you on that.
Yeah. Well, I was trying to do this, like, you know, I don't know. I think we're used to going like the same way, like with our hands and our feet. And then they were doing this counterbalance thing. I was like, I can't get that. And it didn't matter because it was just a fun Zumba class. But anyway, those are the things that kind of came up for me that I think they're worth highlighting. And then you also, through everything that you went through in your life and those things that you learned, you found yourself in a life of freedom. I mean, you were able to create a life that felt comfortable for you, that gave you that freedom to accomplish the things that you wanted to accomplish. One of them being with your children and being there for your children. And I think it's a beautiful thing when we can learn from what we're doing, the choices that we make, and then create this life that we love, you know, and that freedom.
The other thing I'll say about that, in that sweet spot when all of that was crazy town was happening and I was recreating, is I really did a lot of self-work. And when you were saying about trusting yourself and the support model, when I did that work, what I realized was that I needed to be sure that I was paying attention to my triggers, so that I could learn how to ground myself or shift myself out of them when they came up. That was important. And I'm still working on that, but I'm a whole lot better.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, because I said this to someone on my podcast this week. I said, it's amazing when I do these interviews, it's like, oh, I needed to hear that, or it's something that's going on, you know, with me. And that's what I was learning the last couple of weeks. There were just these things that came up that, as I look back on them, I kind of really reacted in the wrong way, incorrect way. I didn't take the time to really think about it. I just, you know, overreacted so quickly. And as I was saying, even before we went live, is that I haven't been doing some of that self work during that time. And I believe if I had been, perhaps I wouldn't have been so quick to judge or quick to jump in and things like that. So there is such importance in that. It continues to be work for us. If there's no like, oh, that's great, now I don't have to do my meditation or my breath work or things like that. I've done all that. It's a practice that needs, that self-care just continues to need to happen, because triggers will happen, other things will happen, other experiences will happen. And if we can keep ourselves grounded in that, then, you know, again, we're showing up better for us, and we're that better example for, like you said, for your children and those that you're around.
And I started this pretty early on, after I got separated, where I have a track that I like to walk on that has a lot of trees and it's really beautiful. And my children have played there. There's a beautiful playground and things like that. But I do this to this day. I will walk that track. I try to do it daily now, if possible, just because I'm working on other goals in my life, other fitness goals. But at the core of that, I talk to myself. And I found that I need to hear my voice out loud to help me process things. So that's what I do. And sometimes, like, if there's a lot of people there, I'll stick on some ear pods and act like I'm on a call, just so people don't think I'm a little goofy town. But like, really just walking and talking, that I think it's the combination of hearing my own voice so I can like really hear what I'm thinking, which sounds crazy, but right. And the combination of movement, because energy is moving in my body, right? So I'm getting it all out physically and mentally, has really, really been a key strategy for me in grounding myself, talking about things that I'm upset about, and coming up with solutions.
Well, I don't think there's any, I mean, that's a very good thing. And again, there is a lot of science or, again, there's behind that, again, movement, or when we go and we work out or go for a run, we have these epiphanies or these things that we then come home and take a shower and we feel like we had the ideas in the shower. But I truly believe it's because we were out there moving or gardening or getting into the soil and things like that.
Yeah.
And I also tell people, because I'm a big proponent of journaling, it's the same thing. When you journal, I believe you can hear yourself speak. You can hear yourself when you start to journal and write those things out. You're speaking, right? You're speaking words into the paper, just like if you want to speak it out loud too. And there's a lot of power in that. There's a lot of, like you said, processing and figuring things out when you can say it out loud, because sometimes that's what happens when, we have that active listening, or you go to a counselor, or you have a friend that says, wow, it sounds like you're saying this, or you're meaning this. And you're like, no, or yes, but someone else is repeating that back to us. So I think it's in a very similar way when you're going out and speaking things out loud.
Yeah.
Or when I journal, if I can sit down and just give myself a prompt of like, why am I feeling this way? And then I just write, it's like, wow. Then I was able to process through get it out of those thoughts out of my head down into that paper. It's a powerful tool to use.
Yeah, it is. And it's been very, very helpful for me. And it's a regular practice that I do daily.
Brought to you by Gorski Wellness and the possibility of a better you. Are you feeling sluggish? Ready for a change? Need more energy? Up for a bigger challenge? I'm Moyra Gorski, retired nurse and wellness advocate. For over 22 years, I've been helping people live healthier lives while making small changes each and every day. Those small changes lead my clients to living a healthier lifestyle with markedly better health. As a brand ambassador for the Shaklee Corporation, the most clinically proven wellness company in the world, I guide my clients to make healthier choices each day with their food, supplements, skincare, workouts, and mindset. They say getting started is half the battle. Let's make healthy happen together. If you're ready for simple, natural, sustainable solutions to feeling and looking your best, let's connect. You'll find a link in the show notes, or reach out to me at moyragorski.com. Here's to a better you. And so tell me a little bit about, again, your practice or your business of helping and doing the education and really having that passion for children and again, I think it's so important for the things that we're learning, right, as women and entrepreneurs and mothers. And I believe if we can continue to use what we learn to help teach those who are coming behind us, then we can create a great world. We can have an impact on the world to come.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I stand for, right? So as far as my profession and my career, early childhood is my passion. Like I did a little teaching in middle school, like when I was trying to figure out when I was just substitute teaching, I did a little in high school. And those at that time were very intimidating grade levels for me. And I remember doing some teaching in early childhood programs and like kindergartens and then preschool. And that just felt right, which is why I chose early childhood. And, early childhood is such a unique grade level because the brain development alone from 0 to 5 is the most your brain grows in your entire life. So what we're learning, how we're learning, what types of experiences we're having, how we're nurtured, our health, all of those things to me is such a hyper-focused 5 years. And I am so empowered to just share like just some really great practices for the students, for the teachers, for the leaders, for the parents that can really just give kids this amazing jump start in life. And then if you also just look from a therapy side, many of our relationships that we have later in life are really built on the bonding factors that we have with our parents and our caregivers, whoever those people are in our lives in our younger years up to age 7. So that's another huge thing. Like I understand there is science and brain science behind this group that really is a foundation for them to thrive or maybe struggle later in life. So I also feel like it's just a proactive, like I'm just empowered by it because it feels very proactive, right? To be able to do that. So my platform is really around educational equity, like really providing resources, funding, trainings for school communities to be able to offer high quality early childhood education. And high quality has some indicators on it, right? We want a curriculum that's aligned to developmentally appropriate practice. We want teachers that have good training and hopefully a pathway to become certified or a grant to be able to do that, right? We want pay, like that's, a good pay for educators. We want leaders that are informed because quite honestly, our school district leaders, many of them are middle and high school trained. They are not early childhood trained. And early childhood has its own unique set of things you need to know and understand. So really helping them understand how to support parents and teachers that are with their youngest learners in their school districts. So all of these pieces are just so important to me. And that's what I've been doing in my work now for 10 years. But the bonus of that is also that because I'm in early childhood, I've sort of got to practice some of these things and really set some things in our family that I think have really contributed to my children having healthy outlooks on life and just healthy emotional responses and being able to ask for support when they need it with, I think is huge for our youth to know that like they can come to a trusting adult, they can get resources. There's always support and an answer for them, or someone to walk with them in it. They don't have to be alone in things. So that's that's the professional side. I'd say the personal side, that I've learned along the way is really the first thing that I relied on when I was raising my kids is really, there was a couple of key things. The first was like community resources, right? So what is in my community that I can expose my children to for them to have these other types of experiences for enrichment, right? So that was my library was huge. We used to go to story times. They used to bring like this therapy dog. They had an art program for young kids at the time. So my kids were getting these enrichment experiences and for free. Right. So there was that. I also am a huge advocate for sports, and not in the sense of like, everybody gets a trophy type of thing, but in the sense of it helps you build the mentality of understanding what a team is, which I think later in life is huge to understand people's strengths and challenges, and it builds confidence as well, or helps you get over confidence issues. And also, it's the sports thing also is like, it keeps you active. And, I was a good teen, but I was also a challenging teen. And what I can tell you is I'm really glad I was involved in sports because sports kept me active after school. It kept me in positive interactions with positive adults. It got energy out of my body, right? So when I came home, I was sort of unintentionally like grounding myself in a way. Like the energy was out, so I was calm. I could concentrate on homework. I could do my work, maybe talk with friends, but I wasn't bored. Let's put it that way. And a lot of times when we have bored teenagers, that's when they sort of can get into maybe not some great choices. They might start hanging out with folks that aren't making right choices. And then, we have some other supports that they may need. So sports really helped me to stay on track. So that was, and also my children also were in sports. So that I think that also kept them really busy. Also our local park system, we have a really great park system where I am, and they did great programming for very low cost. So that was another thing, just keeping them involved, keeping them doing new things. And the other part of that is in keeping them doing new things. Like I wanted them to have experiences where I would take them to, and I would know what they were doing, but I wasn't leading it. And I think that was huge in building their confidence to walk into different situations and be okay. Right? Not feel shy, not feel right. They got to practice that a lot. Like I was there, but I was there at a distance, right? I wasn't necessarily leading the activity. So I think in that was a really big role in some of the ways that I parented. Also having a tribe. I mentioned before, like I was lucky. I saw the need to come back and have support. I came back to New Jersey, but also having a tribe. So by the time I got to 2013, I had lost my grandparents. I had lost my mom. I lost my dad 3 years ago. So that initial support system of family that was there was really not there for me. And then on top of that, I was getting divorced. So I didn't even have my partner at the time. So I really created what I'll call the tribe, the parenting tribe, right? Where you make friends with your classmates' moms or dads, and you're really able to sort of have this mentality of checking in on each other, but also, sometimes they may need a ride somewhere or a pickup or right. And you really being able to work together to support each other. So your kids can get to where they need to go and you have the information, but you're not doing it solo all the time. Which could really be exhausting because I had 3 kids. So it was a lot of activities that I was running around to for a couple of years there. The other thing I had mentioned was the self piece. And when they were little, we kind of had a rule in our house that we really didn't want to say anything that seemed like it could be hurtful to someone else. And that in some ways it would be like no curse words or no bad words is how we would use it. But some of those bad words were not just curse words. They were things like stupid, dumb, right? That kind of stuff. And I think that was also really important because when my kids would hear it with their friends, they knew that it was even though it was in jest and it was in fun, they understood that it could have effects on how somebody felt because we had talked about it and why, we did the why behind the not. And then what I learned about that is my kids actually sort of became this role model in their friend groups that kind of were like, would bring up like, you know what, that's not a great word. Like maybe we should use this word, or that might make them feel this way, or, right. So that was really a beautiful thing to see, just as like that was something we had in our home that we talked about, but then seeing it, how it played out for them in their friend groups as they grew up and things like that. We also went down this path when I was in my own recovery from that year is I started to seek out motivational quotes and motivational speakers. So, and I would like go on Pinterest every day and I would post something, and that was for me. But then what I did is I started to put those things around our house. So if you came in our house now, there's all these little nooks and crannies of motivational quotes and things like that surround them into creating a home that is safe, right? And that is like a high energy type of place. So that was also something that was really important. And we did a lot of talking too. We also did a lot of around checking our self-talk, particularly when they were teens, when they would say something that was like they were saying something that was not so nice about themselves, or they weren't having a really open, view of something. We all kind of would take turns, and we still do this. We still keep each other in check sometimes around keeping the conversation open is what we would call it, right? Keeping the conversation with yourself open. Don't limit your beliefs. Don't limit your ideas. So that was really a key too. And so I think like having some of these just family, what would you call those? Maybe like family mantras, maybe like just a couple of these things that really are very small, but if you practice them regularly, they really created a space in our house that just everybody feels good. Even when friends come over, they say like, oh, your house feels so good. It's so inviting and so warm. And we all of my kids and myself, we all had a role in that because we decided that we wanted it to be a certain way.
Well, and I think when it's just becomes commonplace that, if somebody swears, it's like, hey, is that not the right choice? Or if there's a motivational quote on the mirror when somebody comes in and you're not afraid to, show that you're not hiding them or just putting them upstairs in your room. it just has this beautiful cumulative effect for your family, but also for those that come in there, to see that. But also when your kids go, because I think, often you hear people say, oh, when grandma dies, it's like, well, grandma was always this way. These were the quotes that I remember from my mom or from my grandmother. But, we shouldn't take those lightly, because those can be the parents that are listening. That's the impact that we can have. Now, sometimes my daughter will say, oh, you're just all, what positive word are you going to say today, Mom? But because I just tend to be that person too. But I also noticed that when I was in the midst of struggle too, and things were tough in life, that's what I did. I woke up in the morning to try to find a motivational quote, but it started off because I needed something. And then I shared that out on social. And I remember when I was coming out of the health club one day, this gal stopped me and in her car, rolled down her window, and she said, keep doing what you're doing. Would you keep sharing those quotes? I love, like, every morning I wake up, I'm like, oh, what is she going to share with us? So you never know the impact that you're going to have, but it can be a great impact for our children. And again, in this world that there's all kinds of things that they're going to hear and see. But if we can have that, just having that, I remember one of my sons, my boys, I have 3 boys and a girl, my boys played hockey. So there was plenty of driving the kids around to practice and games and things like that. And there was one year that I was really focused on earning a trip to Paris. And so I had Eiffel Towers and pictures of Eiffel Towers. I still have an Eiffel Tower lamp right here in my office that you can't see, but it's on the top, of the bookcase in front of me. But I had them all over the place, including my car. Like, a printed out. And I remember one of the, guys got in the car one day and he's like, Mrs. Gorski, why do you have an Eiffel Tower picture in your car? I'm like, well, I'll tell you, I'm focusing on getting this trip. And so again, there's, sometimes we may be like, oh, those things, those little things that we do, or the things that we do for ourselves, can really have an impact on our kids, for that day and also for the future. But I want to highlight, like what you said, you talked about community, you talked about the library. I was thinking about my town and how I raised the kids. We live in a beautiful upper, middle class area in the Midwest, beautiful town that has lovely parks, beautiful, wonderful schools. We have a great library. I love my library. We would come home with box, just you take the big bag, the couple of tote bags, we'd bring books and books home. We went to the library story hour. And I think sometimes we're just like, I remember as a mom, we just want to get our kids involved. Maybe we're not thinking about the long-term impact, but I like what you said, like being able to utilize your community and for the things that are free. Now, granted, we pay big taxes. And so part of those taxes obviously goes to the library, and to the park district. But I've also heard moms who have moved away and they're like, oh, the school systems aren't that great. Now I'm going to homeschool because the school system, but we don't even have any parks to take to, or the playgrounds really suck, or things like that. So it's wonderful when you have those things. We have a great park that we live across from, and we go and walk the dog there. Or I've run many miles around there. That's where the soccer games are and things like that. So being able to take advantage of that, having those to take advantage can be, again, it gets our kids out of the house. It gets us out of the house. It gets us to be able to go do something together with us. We have some parks that you can rent kayaks and go kayaking as a family or something like that, or snow skiing at the or snowshoeing or like cross-country skiing at the golf course here, if we ever would get a snow for that. But I love that you mentioned sports too. My children have been involved with hockey and swimming and gymnastics and things like that, and baseball and lacrosse. And our daughter was involved in band and in the arts and things like that. So I think it can be sports, but I also think they can learn that if they're in the musical arts or in some type of fine arts, because it is, when you're on marching band and you got to march down the road, or you have to do your formation, you have to work together as a team, right? And you have to watch the leader, and you have to pay attention to the person next to you and listen to the trumpets come in while the flutes be quiet and all those kind of things. Again, it teaches them how to be part of something. And I feel like, again, it can be in college, or it can be when they're younger, or everywhere in between, is being a part of something. Like you mentioned earlier, having that identity. They could be a hockey player, or they can be a band member. They can be, because I've gotten frustrated with, we love our school system, but it seems to be always like what the football and the show choir. Well, what if you're not on the football team and the show choir? Mm-hmm. We still need to give light to the fact that there might be somebody that's on the speech team that does really well, and that's what they love to do, or they like to go into the culinary arts or things like that. Mm-hmm. Those are all ways that our kids can be involved in something. And like you said, it could be a youth group, it could be Awana clubs, it could be, but being a part of something in addition to your family, but something outside of the family that they can feel that they belong, but also learn a lot there.
Yeah.
Again, the tribe piece, I think as an entrepreneur, I've learned that too, is that having my trusted tribe of people that I can refer my friends to, but also, again, when we're a busy mom and we have those kids, like, not because I don't know if you found this, but like there were some moms that they didn't want to be involved in the carpooling. They didn't want to be involved in can Johnny come over to my house or your house after school because I have to work late or something like that. Some didn't want to be involved in that. Mm-hmm. But I think that I always liked that because I could get a different glimpse of my kids when, like, I took their kids to hockey practice, or I took them on the hockey tournament, or we went to the band competition, or we went to Florida on a field trip. You got to see your kids in a different light, like interacting with their friends.
Yeah.
So you have to learn a little bit different about them.
And I was a big advocate, and I still am, because my youngest is still in high school, of knowing who their friends are, having their friends to the house. I was the one that wanted to do carpool because the conversations that they have when you're carpooling, right? Like you get little glimpses of like you said, who they are and maybe what's current in their life. And also I got to stay hip on the current music trends. Right.
That's so right. Right. Yeah. Right. Well, and also sometimes it got also quiet because they're in their headphones and stuff like that. So, but I also feel like I like to mention there's power in getting your kids in the car and taking a drive and then having conversations, because I've had plenty of conversations, even like driving into the garage and then sitting there, because that child doesn't have to look directly into your eyes. And so you can have those difficult conversations. They don't have to look right at you, but they can sit and they can still speak with you. Or driving to the store, like, oh, we're going to take the long way home because this conversation is good and we want to continue it on, or something like that. So I think there's power even when just taking your kids someplace.
And that was one of the things when I was able to shift and to own my own schedule and start my business, is I was able to take my kids to school every morning. And driving, particularly when they got to high school, they couldn't get a bus because we live a little too close, but a little too far for them to really walk. It's one of those weird, dynamics. So I would drive them, and that was definitely, those were special moments. Like when you have a child in high school, like, they're with friends, like, so really carving out consistent time, even if it was only 15 minutes here and there, in the morning. And maybe if I was when I pick up after sports, we had that time at least every day, 5 days a week, where, it was built in. So we could have those little conversations. So that was good. The other thing I wanted to share that I did when they were little, not so much now, although I love it when they do it. Sometimes my daughter will come in, my youngest, but I used to have them, after they would take their baths when they were younger, they would come and lay on my bed and they would tell me about their day. And I actually learned that from being an educator first, because we used to do that with the kids at the end of the day. We'd say, tell me about your day. What'd you learn today? What was fun? And of course, we'd always prompt the parents to do that. But I actually started that practice with my own kids. And it's been great, because what I think it did, because I did it consistently, is one, I got an insight on how their day was and what was going on. But because we did it so consistently, when they were struggling with something, they would tell me. And then we could problem solve it. Like in the beginning, when they were little, like I may have to call the teacher or email the teacher, right? But as they got into middle school, those conversations became more about, well, what could you do? What, is there somebody else you could talk to? Or did you try to have this type of a conversation? So it was really, really valuable, I think, in an organic way, that they were able to like just feel comfortable enough to like share.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think, again, the importance of is that creating a safe space that, again, may have happened organically, but you were creating a safe space for them to feel like they could open up.
Yeah.
A couple of things that I did when the kids were growing up, I gave them each a notebook, just a little notebook. And I said, you know what, if something's bothering you and you just don't know how to talk about it, or you don't know how to bring it up, you can write it in this notebook and you can stick it under my pillow. And so when I go to bed, I'll find your notebook and I'll write something back to you, or I'll bring it up. Now, a couple of them used it a couple of times. But again, it's that idea that I provided that area that they could write something down if they were, and then sometimes I'd go and talk, no, I don't want to talk about it. But, again, you're providing that opportunity. And then during the pandemic, and again, these were ideas from friends of mine, but I think that's what we do, right? That's what we're doing on this podcast, is sharing ideas so that other people can know them and utilize them. But speaking with a friend, and she said, yeah, we always have Sunday night dinners. And I was like, oh, because I love to cook. And I believe there's power in, it's not about the food. It's about what happens when you get people around the table. Yes. And I grew up with a mother who made dinner for us every night. And so I love that. And so during the pandemic, our daughter and our oldest were not home, but our second and our fourth child were home. And Tommy was in high school and Tyler was doing some school and working. And so there was lots of busyness, and sometimes they didn't work because they shut down, all of that, but in and out and things like that. And so I said, you know what, you can do whatever you want during the week. And I'll tell you if I'm going out, or I'll tell you if there's dinner, or you have to be on your own. But you know what, on Sunday nights, we're gathering for dinner, and we're getting together for dinner, and it'll be between 6 and 7. And then I'd like us, so I started, I'd like us to share the highs and lows of the week. Now, it didn't always go over well. And when people were not in good moods, they're like, or my husband said, I'm not looking in the rearview mirror. I don't want to look in the past. I want to look forward. I'm like, oh, come on. We just want to share highs and lows of the week. But again, it's the idea that we're giving them a space to, well, the high of the week was this, but the low was this. This kid was mean to me, or whatever. Sometimes we never hear about those things. Yeah. Unless we give them a place to do that. Because, I don't know about you, but when I grew up, like, we had phones that were attached to the wall, right? And there was 1 or 2 phones in the house. And so when I came home and Mary called, my mom answered the phone and she gave me the phone, and I talked to Mary, and then she told me in about 20 minutes, you better get off the phone. And so then I got off the phone, and then she's like, how's Mary? Oh, I heard you talking about this. So there was this conversation we had about my friendship. These days, when there's phones and headphones and texting and this social media app, we don't know as parents what our kids are going through. So I believe it's so important to, like you said, you provided that time after bath time, but us as parents, like, figuring out a time that we can it's just kind of an organic thing. Hey, we're just having fun here. But it gives them a chance, because then after Sunday night dinners, what we ended up doing is we often played games, or we carved pumpkins. And before you knew it, maybe Tyler didn't want to participate, the oldest, but Tommy's girlfriend was now allowed to come over to our house. And I ran across a letter that she wrote me when I was cleaning out my kitchen the other day. And she talked about those Sunday night dinners and how that was the highlight of her week. And we introduced her to a lot of firsts. She had never carved pumpkins. She had never built gingerbread houses. She had never done some of the things or played the games that we played. And she loved that. It was a way for us to get to know her. It was a way for her to have fun. I mean, my husband would sit in the front, and she didn't often participate in the games, but I love playing games. And so he would say one day, he goes, what were you guys doing? You guys were laughing so hard. Like, I'm playing that game that, you put the things in your mouth and you have to, like, gosh, talk, yes. Like, ha, 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 ha. I mean, we were laughing. Pauline said, my son's girlfriend, now wife, I've never heard you're seeing your mother laugh so hard, but it was so fun. And I love family time. I miss it with being almost an empty nester. Yeah. But I can't reiterate that enough to say these are things that you can create in your home as the kids are growing up. And then hopefully they will establish those routines too. My oldest, I mean, when my kids come together, I'm like, okay, what game are we playing? My oldest will bring games home. This is a new game that Christy and I have been playing. You want to play it? We play it with Christy's parents. Great. It's just a time to be together and have fun. But it's amazing those conversations that can be had where you provide that fun, safe space for our kids to share. And that's how we can get in there and really provide that support for them.
Yeah. Yeah, I love
need.
that. And game nights are so fun. And also, my kids I still have one in high school, but my older two one's in vet school and one's in college. But now it's a shift of like you were saying, like the family dinners, or, we really try to take every June, we try to take a family trip somewhere before the summer gets crazy. So we're trying to now build new ways to stay connected and have fun and spend time together, while also honoring everybody's lives that they're creating, right? And so, in hopes that we keep, so like that game night could be like that theme, right? Like come back to that theme and everybody's together. So I love that. But yeah, parenting is interesting, right? It's like when you're in early childhood and you're like, when the kids are little, it feels like you'll always be there. It just feels like it's so much, right? But it does definitely morph into different and new things and new creations of how to be together and how to parent, for sure. I mean, I've recreated my parenting a bunch of times.
Well, and I think we all do. And again, as we wrap this up, I think those are great tips that, that you shared today. Again, that any parent can hear and start to think about and start to do some of those things today, because again, it's never too late to start something new or try something new. Or, my daughter the other day, we get the paper and she's like, oh, there's like, I don't know, activity guide or summer guide or something. And that's how we learned about this artisan fair that we went to last week. She's 24. She lives here at home, but I love that she's finding things for us to do, because there was a time in the last many years that she wasn't home because she was in treatment. And it's almost like we're making up for lost time that we didn't have together. So now she said, do not throw out. And she highlighted some things. And we talk about, maybe we want to go to the chocolate festival. Maybe we want to do this. But again, the times change, our kids grow, but there's always time for, again, keeping in mind these certain tips that we can use and start to just keep in mind, so that we can, again, be part of our kids' lives. Like I said in the beginning, build up that resilience in them. So we're creating these wonderful humans that go on, they'll go on in life.
Yes. Well, definitely. Thank you for having me. This is such a fun conversation.
A great conversation. I love it. And I love everything that you shared, and again, what you're doing. And I believe that my audience, again, is going to love this, because again, I'm trying to provide some practical tips of, how we can all, again, find joy in our life. But again, as parents, as entrepreneurs, as moms, dads, things like that. I always say too, that we need to be living examples of how to live our life, but that's not perfection, right? It's just, it's real life, right? We have our ups and downs, and we have our struggles, and we have times that we need to ask for support and then go have fun and those kind of things. So I really appreciate what you shared, today. Please tell, as we wrap up, where people can find you, and any last words that you do have for my audience today.
Sure. Yeah. So my website is verveconsultant.com. So you can definitely go there and learn more about the business offerings and what I do in schools. You can also find me on LinkedIn by my name, LYNEE LOPEZ. And also the other offering I'd like to throw out there is talking about doing new things and being inspired. I actually started a new part of my business where I'm going to be hosting retreats, because I'm really also an advocate in just my personal life and my professional life of being inspired, living an inspired life, living as a part of a community and community learning. So I've partnered with a company called Good Travel, and we've curated a retreat together in Fiji that we'll be going to this October, the 9th to the 14th. And in that, we'll be we'll be with 12 other folks, and we'll be at 2 different resorts with some Fijian partners there. And we're going to be doing inspiration and connection to nature, to community, to culture, to self, And we also have a give back project where we'll be working with an artist group, creating a mural that will be actually hung in an orphanage. So we have a really, really cool trip curated. So I will, if you go and find me on socials, on LinkedIn, there's a registration there. I can also give it to you for the show notes. So folks can check it out and see if they want to join us and really come and have some self-care, some exploration and adventure and reconnection.
Yeah, that's great. I'm hosting my first retreat this summer and hoping to fill a house with 10 women. We can do, again, a lot of those similar things as connecting back to ourselves, spending some time in nature and just getting back to those habits and the tools that we can use so that we can live a joyful life. So thanks for sharing all that. Again, everything will be in the show notes that people can refer. But thank you, Lynee, so much for being here and for this really fruitful conversation. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Yeah. I'll catch you soon.
Welcome. Okay. All right. Thanks, everybody. And we'll see you next time. Hey there. Ready to live a more joyful life? Considering connecting with someone who can help you? If so, I'd like to be that person. I offer a free consultation where we determine where the chaos is in your life and how you can learn to bring more joy each and every day. Visit my website, moyragorski.com, or simply email me, moyra@moyragorski.com, with more joy in the subject line. I look forward to connecting, and I'm here to say there will always be some chaos, which requires a little juggling, but you can find joy and live your life intentionally filled with that joy. Let me help you on your journey to joy. And that's joy, the journey of you.